Welcome back to our news bulletin and good morning to those of you who are just joining us. I'm Saria Stremska. We can't allow President Putin to play games with President Trump's deal, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said on Friday. Later today, the British Prime Minister will host a video conference with European leaders as well as EU and NATO officials. Thus far, Ukraine agreed to a 30-day ceasefire on Monday, but the Kremlin has yet to issue a clear response. Here's the full story.
After Ukraine agreed to the US-brokered 30-day ceasefire deal with Russia, which now awaits Russian President Putin's approval, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that all Kremlin responses to a potential truce are simply serving Putin's agenda.
We have heard the predictable, manipulative words from Putin in response to the idea of a frontline ceasefire. He's already laying the groundwork for rejection. Putin is, of course, afraid to tell President Trump outright that he wants to prolong this war and continue killing Ukrainians. Instead, in Moscow, they surround the idea of a ceasefire with preconditions designed to make it impossible or at least delay it for as long as possible.
Zelensky's words come after Putin said he's open to ceasefire talks.
I think that we need to talk about this with our American colleagues, call President Trump, discuss it together.
Though US President Donald Trump still hasn't sat at the negotiating table with Putin, his special envoy Steve Witkoff spoke to Putin on Thursday. Following the discussions, President Trump took to his platform Truth Social and hailed them as productive. He also stated he made a special request to Putin.
At this very moment, thousands of Ukrainian troops are completely surrounded by the Russian military and in a very bad and vulnerable position. I've strongly requested to President Putin that their lives be spared. This would be a horrible massacre, one not seen since World War II.
In a similar vein, late on Thursday, US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz expressed hope the talks will end in an armistice, given progress in the negotiations with both sides.
We do have some cautious optimism. Of course, both sides will have their demands, and of course, both sides are going to have to make some compromises.
But those assertions have been met with a rather tepid reaction in Europe. Poland's former president and anti-communist movement icon Lech Wałęsa remarked that any potential deal will be to Ukraine's disadvantage.
I'm afraid they will force Ukraine to make a poor compromise, only that again, looking at it logically, it will be a waste of 6 to 10 years according to my calculations, and then it will all turn around. If we don't defend democracy, demagogues and populists will set the world on fire.
Despite the ongoing talks, Russia continues to shell Ukraine. Early on Friday, Russia launched a drone attack on a hospital in the Kharkiv region, injuring one medical worker.
Viktor Orbán's rule in Hungary is being challenged by the Tisza party, with some polls giving it lead over Orbán's Fidesz ahead of the 2026 general elections. Tens of thousands of Hungarians are expected to take to the streets of Budapest on Saturday, the country's national holiday, for demonstrations organized by various political parties, including Tisza. Our correspondent, Paweł Trzaskowski, is on site. Good morning, Paweł. Great to see you. So today is a holiday marking the revolution in 1848 against the Habsburgs. So do you think that this year we'll see a revolution against Orbán, perhaps?
Well, we will see. First of all, the weather is rather gloomy here in Budapest, the capital of Hungary, with some light rain forecast throughout the day. And the reason I mentioned the weather is because it might have an influence on the turnout of various demonstrations. Because the 15th of March, Hungary's national holiday, is the day where all major political forces in the country typically use to make their voices heard. Among them, of course, Viktor Orbán, the country's prime minister and the leader of the Fidesz party, however, who is going to deliver a state address later in the city centre. However, Viktor Orbán's state address is going to be challenged this year by an anti-government demonstration staged by the Tisza party. Tisza party, which was founded last year by a former high-profile politician of Fidesz, Péter Magyar, and over this time Tisza managed to draw tens of thousands of people to the demonstrations that they staged. Today is scheduled to be no different, and we will be here to cover these events for you. But before this happens, because they are starting in the later afternoon hours, I would like you to listen to what Petr Major had to say ahead of today's demonstrations.
Hello, last March the 15th I realized that we are not afraid, and since then the Tisza has been making history. Millions of Hungarians have embarked on a new path, and every day we work and fight to make our country livable, lovable and humane. Now, on March the 15th, it's time to show again that we are not afraid, that we can go all the way. Bring a cockade, a Hungarian flag and invite your friends. Meet us on Andrassy Avenue at 3 p.m. between Octagon and Bajcsy-Zielinski Street. It's best to come to Octagon either by tram number 4, 6 or the subway. If you are coming by car, be prepared for parking problems. It is expected to stop raining by the start of the event, but if it doesn't, that's fine. Petofis didn't mind the drizzle either. March the 15th, 1848 is about us, the Hungarian people, our future, the future of our children and grandchildren. Let's meet at Andrassy. Let us show that change cannot be stopped. Stand up, Hungarians.
We'll, of course, keep you updated about the situation in Hungary. Meanwhile, we're moving to Ukraine. Russian-guided aerial bombs rocked the center of the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson, inflicting damage on residential buildings, shattering windows, and leaving cars on fire.
This is the damage caused by the Russian-guided bombs that hit Kherson.
There was one, then the second one in the car, that's it. Around 2 o'clock. How can I be sure of the time? The doors remained because they were open, and you can see the rest for yourself. It flew, you could hear it. We have such old walls, you see.
Some people felt lucky to have survived the assault.
We're lucky beyond words. In the morning, there were a lot of drones, and now there is a shelling with Russian-guided bombs. From here, we can see a lot of debris and some fallen trees. It looks like it hit a tree, and that saved the building a little bit.
Russia has used this tactic to sow fear among dwellers of the city that once was home to nearly 300,000 people.
I was terribly scared. I went out into the corridor a few seconds before the shelling. I was preparing food, and if I had been standing there, I would have been... You know what would have happened to me.
Russian attacks on Ukrainian civilians and infrastructure persist, despite Putin claiming he's open to talks about a 30-day cessation of hostilities, a US proposal that Ukraine has already agreed to.
The first trial in Finland for war crimes committed during the conflict in Ukraine has concluded. Vojislav Torden, a commander in a Russian paramilitary group, was sentenced to life in prison for the attack and mutilation of Ukrainian soldiers back in 2014. The court found that Torden was a member of the far-right paramilitary group which fought against Ukrainian forces over a decade ago. Prosecutors argued that under his command, the group killed 22 Ukrainian soldiers and seriously wounded 4 others on September 5th of 2014. The case was tried under international law, which Finland is bound by. Torden's lawyer says he will appeal the verdict. The Ukrainian military operation in Russia's western Kursk region has achieved its objectives by diverting Russian forces from more difficult front lines. That's according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He acknowledged that the situation remains challenging, but dismissed reports of Ukrainian troops being encircled, in contrary to what Vladimir Putin says.
Reports of the alleged encirclement of Ukrainian units by the enemy in the Kursk region are false and fabricated by the Russians for political manipulation and to exert pressure on Ukraine and its partners. The situation has remained largely unchanged over the past day. Combat operations within the operational zone of the Kursk group of forces are ongoing. Our territorial defense forces have successfully regrouped, withdrawn to more advantageous defensive positions, and are executing their assigned task within the Kursk region. Our soldiers are effectively repelling enemy offensive actions and inflicting significant fire damage using all available weapon systems. Since the beginning of today, 13 combat clashes have taken place in the Kursk direction. There is no threat of encirclement of our units.
Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić stated on Friday that authorities would do everything necessary to ensure the safety of both protesters and state institutions. His remarks come ahead of mass opposition protests planned for today. Vučić also accused the opposition, which has been calling for his resignation, of rejecting all opportunities for a peaceful dialogue.
We offered opportunities for dialogue to the opposition. They answered with shock and smoke bombs, pepper sprays, brutal attacks, and ruining the reputation of the National Assembly since the establishment of the multi-party system in the 90s. In the last 35 years, they have caused the greatest shame to Serbia and its parliamentary democracy. They were never ready for dialogue. I will not allow anyone to destroy all the good that we have done, and above all, I will not allow them to destroy the future of this country. Not even the youth of this country, even those children whom they try to abuse and manipulate. We will protect them too. On the other hand, we have an illegal gathering. On the other hand, I call on all the state authorities of Serbia, including the police, security agencies, to help ensure that the gathering is fully secured and peaceful. The organizers of the illegal assembly will bear all responsibility. We will do everything to provide that all the participants of the gathering, as well as all state institutions, are secure.
And now moving to Romania, George Simion, leader of the right-wing populist and nationalist Alliance for the Union of Romanians, officially submitted his candidacy for the presidency on Friday. This comes after Călin Georgescu was barred from running by the Central Electoral Bureau. Simion is currently under investigation for inciting violence following Romania's decision to ban Georgescu from running.
We are not against EU. We Romanians want to be a part of EU, but not a part of the EU crooked bureaucratic Brussels, but a part of an Europe of nations, alongside with the other 26 members. We are an European country.
Will they try to eliminate me following the model of Călin Georgescu? Another will come next, and another, and another. They cannot do this to the Romanian people. Europe and America must be together in the future. We should not be forced to choose between mother and father. There is no free world, and there is no future of Europe and of the European Union without the United States. This is my vision, and the vision of the European Party we are part of.
The first installment of East Shield, the Polish Prime Minister's flagship defense project, has been completed. It is located in the village of Dombrówka, near Russia's Kaliningrad region. The new reinforcements include barriers, anti-tank ditches, anti-drone systems, bunkers and shelters for civilians. Once fully completed, the defenses are expected to stretch over 700 kilometers along Poland's borders with Russia and Belarus. Earlier this week, the European Union voted to classify East Shield as a flagship strategic defense project for the bloc. The total cost is estimated at €2.4 billion, with part of the funding covered by the EU. And we continue on a domestic note. According to the latest opinion poll conducted for TVP, Poland's national broadcaster, if the presidential election were held this Sunday, Rafał Trzaskowski, Warsaw's incumbent mayor and Civic Coalition-backed candidate, would be the likely winner. The poll indicates that Trzaskowski has a strong chance of winning both the first and second rounds. In the first round, 36% of respondents said they would vote for Trzaskowski, with his support rising to 52% in a potential second round. Karol Nawrocki, the Law and Justice-backed candidate and head of the Institute for National Remembrance, is projected to come in second with 21%. Sławomir Mencen, the far-right Confederation-backed candidate, would likely place third with 17% support. Trzaskowski saw the biggest increase in support compared to last month's poll, while Nawrocki experienced the largest decline. The first round of Poland's presidential election is set for May 18th, with a second round, if necessary, on June 1st. And with this, we conclude our news bulletin. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more.